Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. I want to welcome you back to part two of my two-part episode, One and Done, where we're looking at bands that released one album and for whatever reason decided to break up after the release of that one album. In part one, I looked at numbers 10 through 6. And in part two, the conclusion of this episode, I will be going through numbers 5 to 1. Now, kicking off part two, coming in at number 5 are Temple of the Dog. Temple of the Dog released their debut self-titled album on April 16th, 1991 to A&M Records. Temple of the Dog were considered a supergroup consisting of members of Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. Upon release, the album reached number 5 in the US charts and number 11 in the Canadian charts. The album had 3 singles, but the one main single, the lead-off single, Hunger Strike, was a massive hit. This track was all over FM radio. It was all over Much Music and other Canadian music shows, and it was all over MTV and FM radio in the US. Now, other songs of note on the album are Say Hello to Heaven and Pushing Forward Back. Say Hello to Heaven was dedicated to Andrew Wood, who was the lead singer for Mother Love Bone, who unfortunately passed away from a heroin overdose. And even though the album did reach number 5 in the US, it was a massive hit, the band decided to break up and members went back to the respective bands to continue their careers. Coming in at number 4 is Talk Show. Talk Show were a offshoot of Stone Temple Pilots. You had Eric Kretz and Dean and Robert DeLeo teaming up with Dave Coots on lead vocals to release a self-titled debut, released on September 2nd, 1997 through Atlantic Records. The album, unfortunately, only reached number 131 in the US charts. It did have one main single called Hello, Hello. The album, I should say the video, did receive pretty major push from Much Music in Canada. Musically, did the album cover any new ground in terms of what STP wasn't doing? No. They basically were continuing with what STP was doing. Scott Weiland at this point was off doing a solo album. He was also dealing with his own drug issues. And Dave Coots, after the what was considered a commercial disappointment for the album, decided to leave the band, and the rest of the band ultimately reunited with Scott Weiland and carried on with Stone Temple Pilots. So that's number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Derek and the Dominos. Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs was released on November 9th, 1970, reaching number 16 in the US charts, produced by Tom Dowd. Derek and the Dominos, another supergroup. You had Eric Clapton, Bobby Whitlock, Dave Mason. Fantastic band. The album was a double album released on Polydor in the UK and Atco in the US. The two main singles, actually, the one main single is a title track, Layla. For me, that is the quintessential track on the album. The end section, the middle section where the track slows down and then the piano kicks in and it goes into the instrumental. For me, that makes the album. When I first heard that, the instrumental section, I honestly thought it was Bruce Springsteen because that was exactly what the type of music he was doing in the 70s, 75, 78. You know, I had no idea that was Derek and the Dominos. Other songs of note on the album are Bad Bottom Blues, you know, and although the album did reach number 16, the band did decide to break up because for whatever reason they couldn't decide on you know the direction of the band overall, etc. Robert Stigwood, their manager, who also managed the Bee Gees, did announce to the press that they would be doing a tour in 1971, but instead the band did decide to break up and go their separate ways. Eric Clapton at this point, I think, was looking for to put a band together that would stay together for a while, that could basically build up a bit of a catalog, and he was having trouble doing that, fortunately. That's number three. Coming in at number two is Swan. Swan released their debut album, Mary Star of the Sea, on January 28th, 2003. Swan were basically a band consisting of members of Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan, and Jimmy Chamberlain. You also had other members of A Perfect Circle in the band. They formed in 2001. They released Mary Star of the Sea through Reprise and Martha's Music Records. Martha's Music was Billy Corgan's own label. Upon release, the album Mary Star of the Sea reached number 3 in the US charts and number 33 in the UK charts. It boasted singles such as Honesty, Lyric, which is another fantastic track. It leads off the album. It's a very catchy, hooky chorus on that track. Also, you had Jesus, Mary Star of the Sea, the 14-minute plus epic track. But again, I mean, was this album covering any new ground musically that Smashing Pumpkins wasn't doing? No. To me, this is, although it's a good album, it is a very good album. It basically was continuing with what Smashing Pumpkins were doing. Billy Corgan had gone on to say that this album was the missing Smashing Pumpkins album. He loved it that much. The band did break up, not due to anything with regarding music. It had to do with interpersonal relationships, drug use. Billy Corgan basically went into it verbatim in an interview online with magazines, and I'm not going to get into that. So that's number two. Coming in at number one is Blind Faith. Blind Faith released their one and only self-titled album on August 9th, 1969 in the US and August 22nd in the UK. Blind Faith consisting of Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, Steve Winwood, Rick Gretsch, fantastic blues band, released on Polydor Records in the UK and Atco, again in the US. This album is simply fantastic. Tracks from this album are still played on rock radio today. It doesn't matter. This album is timeless. You know, I've been listening to tracks from this album on the radio, and I had no idea that, as I get my notes ready here, that they were from Blind Faith. Seriously, like I had no idea. Songs like Had to Cry Today, you know, fantastic lead off track. Can't Find My Way Home, another beautiful, soulful track. Presence of the Lord, Do What You Like. The album was a smash hit, reaching number one in Canada, the UK, and the US. Okay, so pretty much it was a hit across the board. I don't know why the band did not continue. I really have no idea. They had what it took to go on. You know, it was just amazing, this album. For whatever reason, the band felt that they had to break up, whether it was artistic differences or personal differences or whatever. I have no idea. But there you go. number one, uh, Blind Faith. So there you go, guys. That concludes my two-part episode of One and Done. Please put down in the comments down there, down below, what your top five are for One and Done albums and One and Done bands. There are no right or wrong answers. I'm just trying to get a dialogue going here, right? And again, if there's any bands that I missed in this episode and the previous episode to this, please let me know. Again, no right or wrong answers, just opinion, right? So please look after yourselves and each other. I will be back with episodes with Bill Schuster. We talked about doing our top 30 prog songs. So if we're going to do 30 prog songs, that's going to turn into a three-part series, okay? Where we're probably going to do 10 albums, 10 tracks, sorry, per episode. So please stay tuned for that. We have yet to put that all together. And again, click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. And that's it for now. So please look after yourselves. I will see you soon with another video. Bye for now.